Let's be honest, a lot of what happens in wrestling is just filler. It's designed to get us from one moment to the next. But every so often, a moment happens that's so shocking, so out there, it gets burned into the collective mind of everyone watching. In 2009, Randy Orton delivered one of those moments. This wasn't just a simple attack. It was a cold, calculated act of psychological warfare that we're still talking about more than a decade later. The image is unforgettable. Triple H, the King of Kings, is screaming, helpless, and handcuffed to the ring ropes. In the middle of the ring, his wife, Stephanie McMahon, lies unconscious. And standing over her is Randy Orton, a predator enjoying his victory before leaning in to deliver a kiss that sent a shockwave through the entire industry. This is the face of a man watching his worst nightmare happen right in front of him. But the story of how we got here, and the controversial kiss that still stuns the wrestling world, is a tale of betrayal, mind games, and a creative choice that really pushed the limits of entertainment. On the surface, it was just the ultimate villain move to destroy a hero. But the story behind the scenes, of a nervous young star, a detail-obsessed chairman, and a husband who had to watch it all unfold, is in some ways even crazier. This wasn't just another wrestling storyline, it became terrifyingly real for everyone involved. So how did things get so personal? To understand that, you have to rewind. Before the pure hatred, Randy Orton and Triple H were allies. Orton was the hand-picked future of the business, the youngest world heavyweight champion in history, and a star pupil under Triple H in the dominant group, Evolution. But that mentorship soured into bitter resentment. Orton's championship win was seen as a threat, and just one night after the biggest win of his career, he was betrayed and viciously kicked out of the very group that built him up. That betrayal simmered for years. By early 2009, Randy Orton wasn't that blue-chip rookie anymore. He'd become something much darker. He was the Viper, a methodical predator who moved with a chilling calm. He was also the Legend Killer, a guy who seemed to take a sick pleasure in ending the careers of icons. But now, his focus had narrowed. He was systematically targeting the most powerful family in wrestling, the McMahons. This was never just about a title. This was about revenge. Orton's campaign of terror started at the top. In a shocking moment, he delivered a brutal punt kick to the head of a 64-year-old Vince McMahon, leaving the chairman motionless in the ring. This, of course, brought out Vince's son, Shane McMahon, who was ready to fight for his family's honor. Shane fought hard, but he also fell victim to Orton and his new faction, Legacy, which ended with another sickening punt kick that put him on the shelf. With the McMahon men taken out, only Stephanie was left. The storyline was a masterclass in psychological warfare. Orton was taking Triple H's world apart piece by piece, not by going after him directly, but by destroying everyone he loved, forcing him to watch. Orton even called Stephanie worthless, which led her father to demand a public apology. Orton refused and chose to escalate the violence instead. It was all a calculated plan to drag Triple H into a war on his terms, a war where vengeance was the only prize. The climax. The kiss. It all blew up on the February 16, 2009, episode of Monday Night Raw. Weeks of torment were about to hit a terrifying peak. Triple H finally pushed past his breaking point, stormed the ring to get his hands on Orton. But it was a trap. Legacy jumped him, and Orton handcuffed him to the bottom rope. He was a king trapped in his own kingdom, completely powerless to stop what was coming next. Stephanie McMahon ran to the ring to save her husband, but she walked right into the Viper's den. With a chillingly blank look, Orton dropped her with a DDT. She was out cold in the center of the ring. For a second, the arena went quiet, as the horror of the moment set in. The violence was one thing, but what Orton did next went beyond any normal wrestling story. He looked from Stephanie's still body to her enraged, helpless husband, a sadistic smile creeping across his face. He was soaking in every single second of Triple H's agony. Then he leaned down. The kiss wasn't one of passion, it was predatory, cold, and violating. It was the ultimate act of humiliation, a symbolic move meant to shatter Triple H's soul. In a brilliant production choice, the commentary team went completely silent, letting the raw, uncomfortable images and the horrified crowd tell the story. It was a moment so evil that fans still talk about how 2009 Orton would make the devil look like a saint. But to really get why this moment was so controversial, you have to go backstage. Because while Randy Orton the character was a confident, sadistic monster, Randy Orton the man was a nervous wreck. Years later, Orton revealed just how incredibly uncomfortable he was with the whole segment. He was in his late 20s and was being asked to perform an intensely personal and violating act on his boss's daughter, right in front of his boss, Vince McMahon, and her husband, Triple H. The whole thing was, in his own words, awkward as hell. Vince McMahon was meticulously planning every detail during rehearsals, figuring out exactly where Stephanie needed to fall and how long the handcuffs had to be so Triple H couldn't reach her. When it was time to rehearse the kiss, Orton was so uneasy that he secretly hoped they'd run out of time and have to cut the segment. He admitted he was so embarrassed by the word kiss that he wouldn't even say it, calling it the SK for Stephanie Kiss. He remembered his face turning beet red, a total contrast to the cold-blooded character he was playing. However, Triple H, always the professional, knew how powerful the moment would be for the story. He saw past the real-life awkwardness to the masterpiece of villainy they were creating. It was a fascinating look into the strange reality of pro wrestling, where performers have to navigate deeply uncomfortable situations to create unforgettable drama. This segment is still one of the most watched clips in WWE's digital history, with hundreds of millions of views across YouTube and social media, which just proves its lasting power. It perfectly blurred the line between story and reality, using the audience's knowledge of Triple H and Stephanie's real marriage to create a level of pure hatred for a villain that you rarely see. But what do you think? Was this storyline a brilliant piece of psychological storytelling, or did it go too far? Let me know your memories of this moment in the comments below. And if you enjoy deep dives into wrestling's most unforgettable stories, make sure to subscribe to the channel. The immediate result of the kiss was a showdown on the grandest stage of them all. The main event of WrestleMania 25 was set: Triple H versus Randy Orton. This was no longer about the WWE Championship. It was a blood feud fueled by pure, raw hatred. Triple H would get his revenge that night, beating Orton to keep his title. But the legacy of that kiss is about so much more than a single match. For Randy Orton, it cemented his character as one of the most hated and effective heels of the modern era. Fellow wrestlers like Damian Priest have since called it the most villainous moment in WWE history, a masterclass in getting a real, visceral reaction from the crowd. The segment redefined what a villain could get away with in the PG era, proving that psychological torment could be way more shocking than just physical violence. For years, that image has stuck with us. A helpless husband, an unconscious wife, and a villain who knew that the deepest wounds don't come from a sledgehammer, but from an act of deep, personal violation. It was uncomfortable, it was shocking, and it was absolutely unforgettable. It remains a legendary segment that, for better or for worse, showed wrestling storytelling at its most daring and provocative.